Welcome to another edition of You and Your Money. I'm Bryan. This evening we're focusing on short-term insurance. Justice is not always accessible for South Africans, and the reality is that it's not always viable for disputes to be settled in a court of law, especially when one considers how long it takes to get an outcome and, important, how prohibitively expensive the legal process can be. There are various alternate avenues and options like the small claims court and the ombuds schemes to assist to resolve disputes. An ombudsman is an officially appointed official or body with authority to investigate the individual's complaint against a company or organisation. Essentially, their role is to facilitate conflict resolution between parties by offering advice and mediation. Currently, there are 6 ombuds offices. However, from the 1st of March, 4 of these offices have been merged and the newly formed National Financial Ombuds Scheme. And joining this evening is Edith Texera McKenna. And Edith, I'm going to give your title. You are lead ombud of the non-life insurance division of the National Financial Ombudsman Scheme, South Africa. Can I make one comment? Don't have that all on one card. Can you imagine if you're going to have to put that in every letter? And Craig Poger, director of the Poger Group. Craig, Edith, thank you very much for joining me. What was the rationale about this? And is this falling in line globally?
So the rationale is a call by National Treasury a number of years ago already to rationalise the ombud landscape, meaning there were too many ombud schemes in the financial sector. It created confusion for consumers. It also created jurisdictional gaps. Certain products that were coming on the market weren't being covered by any of the schemes. And so National Treasury asked us to really have a look at what we could do to come together and combine in line with international best practice. So yes, in most jurisdictions around the world, we have one financial ombud scheme as opposed to a scheme for banking complaints, credit complaints, life and non-life complaints.
It's not a statutory body.
No, it's non-statutory based on the World Bank's recommendations. So they came in 2020 and did a diagnostic of the whole landscape, and based on their recommendations, we've created this NFO for short, which is non-statutory, independent both of government and the industry. And
Edith, what's going to change in your life? I mean, you're still involved in short-term matters, short-term complaints. We're hoping this is going to speed up, because I mean, you're already working under enormous pressure. You made the comments before we came on air that claim complaints coming to your office in the last 2 years have increased by 26%.
I don't think the idea is to speed up anything. It's really to create one port of entry for all financial complaints against financial institutions. It's also to start aligning processes between the 4 divisions. So the scheme is structured in such a way that there are 4 adjudication divisions: banking, credit, life and non-life, supported by a shared services division. But for the consumer, it should be business as usual. And in time, we'll obviously try and align processes and make the experience for the consumer the same across all the 4 divisions.
Craig, I'm very worried about you because our one guest that we've been having for 15 or 20 years is not in the studio. Yes. Namely, Ruben, I believe you're in Plet having a good time. Well, your son looks fine, he's okay. With us, we don't need you here, Ruben. Craig, something you mentioned before we came on air, that the industry's tough. I mean, we've had tough years. I go back to the 80s when AA Mutual collapsed and other mergers. But you say that the industry has toughened up a lot.
Most definitely, Bryan. A few factors at play would be obviously the claims that have happened in the last 3 years. Talk about COVID, the Sazia riots, and there are some of the flooding in KZN has obviously caused a huge amount of pressure on our local insurers, and of course that has a ripple effect. You've got reinsurance now. Reinsurers are applying a pressure on the local insurers, and risk mitigation is also becoming a huge play in the insurance industry. So overall, Bryan, yes. And then in addition to those major catastrophes, you've obviously got your everyday power surge claims, Unfortunately, with the infrastructure, we're having a lot of pothole claims. So there's a huge amount of claims in the system that are obviously, and that what happens is claims drive premiums. So it's putting pressure on premiums, and the local consumer and policyholder is taking a huge amount of strain.
And they're under strain, really. We're going to talk about some of the things that may add to that. But Craig, you know, from a broking point of view, when you get a repudiation from an insurance company, I know you do everything in your power to make sure it gets to the top person making that decision. Then, in your case over the years, have you recommended many clients to go to the Ombudsman because you haven't been able to resolve the claim?
So, Bryan, we try to steer away from that road as best as we can. We try to work together with the insurer for an amicable solution. And we're proud to say that at our company, we often get to that point where both the client, ourselves, and the insurer come and reach a conclusion that is both satisfactory for all parties involved.
Craig mentioned premiums. Craig mentioned the word reassurance. We're not very happy, we're not very popular with international reinsurance companies at the moment.
I don't think as popular as we were in the past, based on obviously our interaction with the industry. There's a lot of pressure from reinsurers. We are not as attractive a market as we used to be, especially with our economic and social environment, which is very tough. And the number of natural disasters and weather-related disasters that have been happening over the years with storms and floods, it's becoming a real issue. And of course our grid, energy grid situation as well.
And also when you think about it, R1 million claim in a different currency is nothing. I mean, we convert that to pounds. I mean, R1 million claim is what, something like £45,000 and maybe $60,000. It's not big money. Is that something that impacts with you, as it comes into your play at all?
So, Bryan, whilst absolutely it comes into every play. I mean, you have obviously placements both on the personal lines, which is your motor and home insurance, and commercially, where the reinsurers are applying pressure. And obviously what that does is it creates big increases in terms of premiums. Remember is that if you look at where we've started of the last 2 or 3 years, a lot of these reinsurers have made losses over the last couple of years. So you can convert rand dollar and say, well, hang on a second, if you convert, it's not really much rands, but unfortunately for the last couple of years, there's been loss leading claims. So it is challenging. And obviously also what happens in our world is there's been a lot of changes to policy wording. So insurance companies naturally are looking to adjust their policy wordings based on the reinsurance pressure. So as brokers, it's very important to continuously update the client in terms of the changes to the policy. And that also creates a challenge because you want your clients to understand the policy as best as they can.
Craig, how much does claims play in not only increased premiums, but the possibility that insurers will refuse to insure you?
It's a big play. Also, again, if you have a look at clients, very often when the insurance companies underwrite their client when they're wanting to move, they either look at 3 years, and based on claims, they may go to 5 years claims history. So very importantly is that's key, and also very material. So if you're looking at changing insurance companies, one needs to disclose all your claims accurately over the last 3 years, and if you underwrite or the new insurer asks for more details, you need to extend it to 5 years. And that becomes challenging because obviously with the insurance companies and the risk for appetite reducing, it makes it challenging to place that type of business. And clients, I think you mentioned it previously in your show, Bryan, is when you're unlucky, no one wants to have their TV hit by lightning, but unfortunately these claims add up, and it does cause an issue when it comes to underwriting.
In terms of the comment that Craig's make, do you find many complaints coming to you where people have been refused insurance and they're now really coming to you? Because, I mean, being refused insurance is a real problem because you have to disclose that forever. And people may not always remember the claim. So there are 2 questions I want to ask you. One is complaints coming to you because insurers have maybe repudiated a claim because you didn't disclose previous claims, and the second thing where policy has been cancelled, not because of fraud, but because this had too many claims. How does your office deal with that?
So Definitely. I mean, misrepresentation and rejecting a claim on that basis is one of the top trends in our office and has been
Well,
like
let's
that.
understand, there's innocent and fraudulent misrepresentation.
It
I mean, I would
covers
think
both.
people
Yeah.
not knowing, remember claims 5 years ago would be innocent.
It's very difficult unless you have, a broker who assists you to keep a record of these things. It's not always easy to remember. So we'll look at the circumstances of those claims, and we'll look even at how the question was asked, because sometimes the question is not correctly asked, or the insurer has not asked the correct question to actually receive the correct information. But if, unfortunately, the information is incorrect, there was a proper disclosure, a question by the insurer, then there are circumstances where we can't assist the consumer. It is difficult, even with fairness and equity, that we can't just say because we feel sorry for the consumer that the insurer should consider the matter or reconsider. And we do see insurers not either upfront accepting the risk because you've had 3 claims in the past year, even 1 claim on one particular insurer which we questioned, and we were able to get underwriting guidelines to substantiate the insurer's stance. But it is within the insurer's prerogative to decide what risks it wants to underwrite and which it doesn't. And our jurisdiction is limited in that respect. We can't question an insurer's legitimate exercise of their commercial judgment. And that's what it boils down to.
Craig, I want to get one point for you to deal with. I mean, where people have lots of claims and they then get their policies cancelled, that becomes a problem for you going forward.
Absolutely, Bryan. From a disclosure point of view, as you correctly said, you have to disclose that to the new underwriters. But what's very important...
I'm not talking about claims now, I'm talking about actually your policy being cancelled.
Yeah, no, that's a big problem in the industry. If your policy is cancelled, you're going to have a very difficult time in sourcing new insurance. So that's definitely an issue. We're hoping that before that happens, we try and manage the client as best as we can, because obviously that's key. We never want to get to that point where an insurer or underwriter cancels the policy. So in our world, we try and manage the client, we try and see what claims they have had, where we also sit with the underwriter and try to see how best we can manage the portfolio, be it increased excesses, different deductibles, different sources on the policy that we can adjust in terms of making it better for the insurance companies to either continue with that risk or alternatively look at corrective measures.
Because we're going to come back, when we come back shortly, we're going to come back and just talk about material, insuring correctly, insuring for the right amount. But we're going to take a short break. Stay tuned. We'll be back.